Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Ando's Thinky Time podcast. I'm so pleased that you're listening. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Today, it's an interview episode. I'm getting to interview somebody. I always love that because I get to sort of dig around in their brain a little bit and find little art nuggets to chew on, you know. You know what I'm saying? You ever dig around in someone's brain for something to chew on? Figuratively, that's what I'm doing. Today's episode is with Mr. Mike Butler. He is the Longmont Public Safety Chief, a really great guy. I met him a few times now, and I just really dug his vibe, to put it in hippie talk. He invited me to his office to interview him, and we just got along famously. I got to ask him some great questions, which I've captured for you here on this podcast. Thank you very much for listening. I think you'll dig this episode. If you also dig the tune that's playing, you can have this song. If you just sign up over at patreon.com/Ando the Artist. I'm putting all kinds of exclusive content up there. My new album that's going to come out here in a couple months. The rough tracks are already available on patreon.com. So are pictures of paintings in various stages of completion. Lots of shit on there, man. You want to see that. Go over to patreon.com/Ando the Artist and sign up today. Also go to andyepler.com. That's where all my stuff is. That's where all the episodes of this podcast are. Don't you want to listen to more episodes of this podcast? I think you do. I want you to. andyepler.com. Or subscribe on iTunes. Or listen to it on Spotify. Just ingest it. Just put it in your ears. Put it inside your ears. Let me crawl into your brain. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode. My friend, have you ever considered having a mindful kind of practice before? Meditation, interesting tool. Another interesting tool is yoga. I'm no expert yogaist or yogist at all, but I have been using it for a few years now just to kind of help me get connected to my body, help me get in shape, help increase my flexibility. It's really helped my back. I've had back problems for years, and yoga has been a really great tool for me. I want to recommend a yoga place for you, friend. Are you in Boulder County? I hope so. Left Hand Yoga on over on 1811 Hover Street, Suite H here in Longmont. Left Hand Yoga. They're a really good spot to go to, especially if you've never yogaed before, my friend. Sometime you got to yoga that sexy ass body of yours, listener. You ought to at least try it. And these guys are a great place to make your first place that you yoga. They're really great teachers and really take good care of you. I hope you not hurt yourself as you try and get into these positions. If you're like looking up shit on YouTube or whatever, you may be doing something subtle that will hurt you in the long run. These people won't let that happen to you. I think that when you leave yoga your first time, you realize that you're feeling good, you're feeling clear, you're feeling centered. I recommend it really highly. Check out lefthandyoga.org to see their class schedule, and go by and say hi. Tell them Ando sent you. And I'm excited for you. Dearest listener, on April 19th, 2018, the year of our robotic overlords, at 5 p.m. at Grossen Bart Brewing, there will be a fire auction put on by our friend Lindsey Carnuth, otherwise known as LindseyLand. We do love Lindsey, and one cool thing about Lindsey is she has a huge collection of great art pieces that she's gotten over the years, mostly vintage stuff and even vintage clothing items and some furniture, things like that. She's really got an extensive collection, but she is auctioning all of it off and giving 75% of the proceeds to Agape, Safe Haven, and Hope, those two organizations here locally. Feel free to look them up and see what they're all about. But come out on April 19th, 5 p.m. 5 p.m. till 10 p.m. There'll be live music all day. You should come out and you should purchase some art. Do you know why? Do you know why you should purchase some art? Because your life needs enriching. Did you know that? It's something that sometimes someone else has to tell you. You need to purchase some art. That's just true. And this is a classy event. You could dress up, wear some nice clothes to this event. This is a very important local art event. The fire auction at LindseyLand. April 19th, 5 to 10 p.m. at Grossen Bart Brewing here in Longmont, Colorado. Wear something nice. Might as well look sexy. It's an art show, you know. Sexy's not bad. Sexy's good. Classy, sexy. That's you. You're going to be there. See you there. Thank you for coming on my little show, Mr. Butler. Thanks for having me in your cool office. With a beautiful view, I must say, of downtown Longmont.
All right. Yeah, I can see him coming from my big windows.
How long have you been in your post?
I've actually been doing the public safety chief's job for 9 years. Before that, I was the police chief for about 15 years. And so 15 and a half years.
Wow. And right before we were recording, we talked briefly that you worked with the FBI. Is that right?
I did.
Can you tell me about that? That's super fascinating.
Well, it's not as fascinating as you might think. I was never a special agent for them.
So you're not the X-Files.
I'm not the X-Files guy or the Untouchable or anything like that. I basically was an office-bound person, but I worked in their security department and was responsible for occasional surveillance of certain things, and I'll just leave it at that. But my job wasn't that exciting. It's just something in my history.
Yeah, I guess like most dudes in the FBI are just paper-pushing investigator type dudes, brainy guys or whatever.
Yeah, well, they focus more on terrorism now. What do I want to say? It's counter domestic intelligence.
Oh, okay.
That's their big field right now, especially since 9/11. They made big changes in what they focused on.
Yeah, all the Patriot Act stuff came down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know what I think about that stuff. I haven't thought about it in years. But, you know, the future of technology sort of binds us to that kind of thinking. Because, like, my phone, it's recording now, but it was probably recording before. Or if somebody wanted it to, it would have been. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's zero to be done about that
Yeah,
shit. And it's not necessarily just the government. It could be any old buddy. Nowadays,
Yeah.
some 15-year-old probably knows how to do that better than I do. You know?
And maybe not within 10,000 miles of us.
Yeah.
So,
well, luckily, they don't have to do that this time because we're going to be releasing this on the internet.
okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, feel free to spy on us all you want. Yeah, FBI or CIA secretly working in the country. Yeah, you motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Question 2, can I hold your gun?
That's kind of a strange question,
Oh,
but
is
I'm
it?
going to say no.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Oh, tough interview, eh?
Yeah, all right.
I have to play my good cop, bad cop routine on you.
Give it a shot.
Now, here's one thing that I think must be a cool thing about working with, having a job as a policeman, or a police lady, police person. What is the term you guys use?
Police officer.
Police officer, of course.
Or peace officer.
Peace officer is so much nicer. I've always thought it would be so cool to interrogate somebody. Is that more boring than it is on TV?
Oh, that's interesting. I think it's situational and kind of individual. It's a skill.
Yeah, right.
It's a skill that we train our people in, and it's a skill that, and it's also an art, and there's a little science as well. And the more experienced you get, the better. And occasionally, it may be depending on the gravity of the case, the kind of case it is, If you're going to solve a major crime, or if you're going to stop the bleeding, so to speak, of things happening in the community, then it has a little bit more pressure attached to it, and it's a more challenging. And I think you're really kind of in a competitive mode almost to make sure that you can get what you need, because one thing that we see, and this is kind of a little bit different than maybe the question, one thing cops see that the rest of the community very seldom gets wind of or people don't talk about, are what happens to victims. And so we often hear about what happens to the suspect or the offender, and that seems to be the focus of a lot of media. But the one things that police officers attach them to are the plight of the victim. There's no legal provision for a victim in the criminal justice system. And so when I say solving a major case, we work with families, we work with real victims, we work with kids, we work with people who have been truly hurt. And a lot of that emotion is inside of us when we're interrogating someone around trying to solve that crime or trying to keep other people from getting hurt. And so that's why I went the victim route there. And so there's a lot going on inside us when we're having that. It's just not mano on mano or mano on womano or whatever that is.
Win the argument.
No. We're really after something to help the victims heal.
See, I had never thought about
and
that.
The community doesn't think about that, and the general public doesn't think about that. And oftentimes we're kind of the portrayal that people have of us is what TV provides.
Right.
Or what the papers provide, or what CNN provides. And so, but we work for people and serve people in our community that have been victimized by crime, and in some cases, pretty seriously victimized.
Yes,
and so, police officers attach themselves to that, and I'm glad we do.
So there's a certain amount of empathy that comes with being good at that job.
There has to be.
Yeah.
In fact, our work with victims is maybe the most important thing we can do. But that's not the part that gets out there.
Yeah. That's not the exciting, if it
No,
bleeds, it
I
bleeds
mean,
kind of
we want to go somewhere else. So the nature of your question, Andy, was, is this fun? Is this challenging? Is this exciting? Whatever. Yeah, it can be. But underneath all of that is this sense of almost service and duty towards other people who we're trying to help.
Yeah, there's a lot of nobility behind the process, and probably super difficult because, when people are in trouble, they're fucking liars. And, you must, I would think it would be fun from the perspective of just like, here's this person that doesn't want to give me this information. What is the chess game that I can play on them?
That's part of it. I'm not going to deny that's part of it.
Yeah. It's
And
part
that
of the
gets
skill
into
set,
the art,
I guess.
that gets into skills, that gets into the science. It gets into where we do it, how we do it, things that are said, sequence of questions. All those things are part of the science and art of conducting an interrogation. And interestingly enough, it's some people respond to being treated nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some people say, well, hey, this detective appreciates me, this detective values me.
Yeah.
I'm going to let him know what he wants to know or she wants to know.
Establish a rapport.
Yeah, and so we have to figure that all out.
Interesting.
And go from there, because each person we talk to has different motivations, and sometimes, like you say, they don't want to talk to us, or they'll tell us something to put us on another path or to divert us away from them or something they don't want us to find out. And so it can be chess-like. It can be very complicated and challenging, and so yeah.
That's really fascinating. You keep calling it an art, and I think I'm starting to see what you mean, because that's sort of my field, right? So I wrote a book about art philosophy a few years back, and I sort of defined art for myself anyway, in my world, as a communications platform. So a craft is, I made this beautiful sandwich. I knew just how to put it together. It's delicious. You're going to love this sandwich. That's a craft. But if I make that sandwich and I say like, and the cheese represents, my mother didn't love me, and that's soaked through the whole sandwich and ruined it. You know what I mean? Now you've made art. Now it's still a fucking sandwich, but it's the intent behind it, and it's the desire to communicate through the medium that makes it art. And I didn't see. This is why I don't plan too much about these interviews. I just ask.
That's good.
Because now we've discovered that when an officer is interrogating a suspect, there is, because it's a communications-based experience, you're trying to communicate, they're maybe trying not to communicate or whatever. That's definitely the game. So that means you're definitely doing some form of art, however subtle and however you want to describe that and define that.
It has to be creative.
Yes, you have to be creative.
There's some creativity involved. It's not just simple formulas and menus and templates. There's a lot of subtleties and nuances.
Improvisation.
That go with communication anyway between people. And so that's part of it with someone we're interrogating.
Because I would think you're reading their body language, you're sending body language signals to them. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Even just I hear, if their eyes move a certain way, they're accessing their creative brain or whatever.
I think it's called neurolinguistics or something.
Yes. Well, neurolinguistic programming is when you force people to have connections in their mind to certain ideas.
Okay, well maybe I'm thinking of something else.
No, I think you're right on the board. I can't think of exactly what it's called. But because people experience an emotion and they have a physical reaction to it that they don't know is happening.
Right.
So if you can clue into that, you can A, gain rapport with that person by responding properly, or B, expose them because of what you notice they're thinking.
Right. Nothing's foolproof though.
No, of course not.
Yeah,
right.
but those are trends and themes and patterns that we can pay attention to.
They're clues, right? And so some clues you kind of throw away, other ones you go, oh, well, that's part of the bigger pattern.
You've got to follow that one.
Oh, see, I had no idea we'd talk about that. I didn't think we'd talk about art at all, I guess. But here we are.
Here, keep going. There's a lot of art in what we do.
Yes, I guess there is. Now, when you say that, what do you mean?
Well, and I guess it's how we define art.
Of course.
But art is something that, for me, it's kind of connecting the emotions of time to the thoughts of eternity, so to speak.
Oh my God.
And
Mr. Butler.
And so it's how we can make things better in the community, and how we can improve quality of life, and how we can take a set of circumstances, whether that's in a family, a neighborhood, or maybe the community at large, and there's a lot of emotion attached to that, and how to move it down a path where people feel good and comfortable about going down that path, and can self-sustain and don't need us anymore, and can become self-sustaining and self-sufficient in terms of creating a different path for themselves that was not there when we first got there.
And through your actions and through your motivations, you've created that environment.
Right.
That's totally art, because you've communicated a purpose.
And so there's a lot of that goes on in our world, and we deal a lot with folks struggling with addiction. We deal a lot with folks struggling with their mental health. We deal a lot with people struggling with homelessness. There are marginalized folks in our community. There are disenfranchised people. There are economically disadvantaged people. And we encounter those folks, and so part of our job as being human beings, not just police officers, I think, is to take what we have as our blessings and what we're fortunate with, and try to make that work for other people too. And so what we hire people into the profession of policing, at least we do here in Longmont, who want to do that. It's not just about cops and robbers. It's not just about putting bad people in jail. It's not about just kind of the science of the interrogation piece, but there's a lot we want from our police officers that have that capacity to take a set of circumstances and make them different, and so there's a lot that goes into that.
Interesting. You and I talked once before. I interviewed you once before over the phone. for a magazine that I think went under before I could even type the first sentence of that story. but when we talked that time, we talked a lot about the different programs you guys are running and to help people with mental instability problems, what have you. And I remember just thinking I liked you and that you're such a nice guy and seem to have a really genuine love and respect for the community that you're serving. And I do really get the vibe of peacekeeper from you, which I really respect. That being said, can I hold your gun?
Wow, again, it's a pretty strange question. And again, my answer is no.
No? Okay.
All right.
Yeah, that's all right.
And I will just tell you this, my gun's not even in this office.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
That's going to make it more difficult. I don't know how I'm going to talk you into a different office mid-interview.
Well, it's not even in this building.
Oh, my God.
So.
Well, Jesus, Mike, you've ruined it.
Yeah, you got to come up with another question.
Well, that's all right.
All right.
Another time, maybe. Rain check.
All right.
I'll ask you again another
time. All right, we'll go out to the firearms range. How about that?
I'll tell you what. I grew up with guns, and I'm a good shot.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We used to go out in Texas with our .22s, and we'd shoot prairie dogs, which I don't think you can do anymore. I'm pretty sure back then you could, and it was just like whack-a-mole. You know, my uncle and I would get out on this property, and I think it's his friend's land, and there's this little shed out there, and you'd look across 50 yards of field, and then a million more yards of field, right? But in that first 50 yards, there's all these holes, and it's whack-a-mole, man.
Yeah.
They pop up for a few seconds. They fly back into the dirt from the bullet, and then a few seconds later, somebody else comes out and goes, "Where's Gary? What happened to Tom?" or whatever. And then fucking Tom's gone, and fucking Barry comes out, and Barry's like, "What happened to the guys?" Yeah. And they never get hip to it, And they're not much good eating, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So tell me this. You also used to work with the SWAT team. Was that in Boulder?
That was in Boulder, yeah.
Man, that seems like it would be a high-stress environment.
Well, yes and no. Typically, a SWAT team isn't used unless the circumstances are a lot more dire.
Right.
But I will just say, I was in Boulder in a previous life. I was the commander of the SWAT team, but the philosophy of our use of the SWAT team here in Longmont, we don't use it as an aggressive police tactic. Like a lot of people would like to think, well, SWAT's out there, the Longmont police are being aggressive and they're militarized and everything else, and we get that. But that's not what that's about. What that's about is keeping everybody as safe as we can possibly keep them, and our SWAT team in Longmont has an incredible record of never having shot anybody and rescuing lots of people who wanted to hurt themselves, and helping victims of crime escape, people who were trying to hurt them, or bringing situations to a satisfactory conclusion where no one, including suspect, victim, innocent bystanders, or police officers get hurt. And so
that's like a fucking magic trick.
When you have a team that can do that, you can, the lens that the media likes to put on it, or like a lot of people like to put on it, is there's this aggressive police tactic.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, the lens that deserves to be put on it is, how do we keep everybody safe, and how do we rescue, and at some level, oftentimes, how do we protect people from themselves because they're potentially suicidal?
Yeah.
And so that's what we use them for.
Wow.
And so it's a team that, like I said, the circumstances are typically dire. There's almost 100% of the time there's weapons involved on the other people. And there's lots of high-powered weapons in this community. There's lots of weapons in this community, and there's lots of high-powered weapons. And so our SWAT team has high-powered weapons too. And so, like the old axiom, you don't want to take a knife to a gunfight. We don't want to. We want to be able to know that we're as equal in terms of, quote, firepower if we have to be. But we've never shot anybody.
That's really worth
and we've never hurt anybody.
I can't.
I have to say we have actually used less lethal that has hurt people, but It's been
zapping them or something,
or beanbags,
yeah.
but it's never killed them.
Yeah,
and they recover quickly from those things, and it's either we're saving our officers, saving them from themselves, or saving another person. And so that's what our SWAT team does.
That's such a beautiful answer. I would not have guessed that the number of people that had been killed would be 0. It just seems like the criminals would make that almost
We've never
impossible.
shot anybody
That's incredible.
with a weapon.
Never shot anybody.
No.
Boy, that brings
From the SWAT
a lot
team.
of joy.
From the SWAT team.
Yeah. Well, like when I think of SWAT team, I think of the TV stuff, right?
That's
and that's why I
most
want to
people.
ask,
Yeah.
hey, kicking in the doors, go, that kind of shit.
So, but that's, at some level, Andy, that's who we are in Longmont. And again, there's a lot of things that are in place to support who we want to be in Longmont as a police department. And by the way, I also oversee fire services, and we haven't talked about fire.
No, but let's.
But on the other hand, in public safety, since my title is public safety chief, that's who we are in fire and police. I mean, like when I talked about the victim, I mean, that energy around the victim is a part of who we are. And so when we hire people, we really try to do our best to hire people who get a lot of energy from relationships and connections.
Oh, I see.
And so we don't want to hire lone wolves. We don't want to hire cowboys or cowgirls or whatever that might look like. We want to hire people who genuinely love people.
Yeah.
And then we can train them to be the kind of police officer, and we can give them the tools, and we can give them the equipment, and they can go out and do their job. But underneath all of that, those tools and training and equipment, is this person, this human being that wants to be of great service. And I don't know how else to say it, but that's who we hire in terms of hiring people who have this sense of spirit of service, not the spirit of adventure.
Yes.
I mean, I don't want people who want adrenaline fixes. We really shy away from people who are younger, and the average age of the people we hire is around 30, 31. They have a college degree. They've had jobs. They're no longer the center of their own universe.
Yeah.
They've experienced disappointment, rejection, failure.
Yeah.
They like to work in teams. They understand what it means to serve communities. And those are the and then they're big into relationships and connections. Those are the people we hire. And when you find police officers, I mean, they may seem a little bit, maybe for a moment, standoffish, but that's part of the training too.
Sure.
But when you get to know a police officer and if you talk to them for more than 5 minutes and you're genuinely authentic and sincere around wanting to know who they are and what they're about, you'll be able to connect with them pretty easily, and they'll connect with you.
I've never gotten a mean vibe from any of the cops in town.
No,
I don't run into the fire folks.
Well, and fire folks are we have an incredible staff in fire as well, in terms of the same kinds of folks we hire. They're worldly people. They're articulate. They're intelligent. They're educated. They make a big difference in the people in our community. And I can't tell you, I mean, fire is often involved in saving of lives, and the heart attack save rate in this community is like 3 or 4 times the national average.
Really?
Because of the skill sets we bring.
And because of the people you've been hiring.
And the people we hire. So yeah, so it's and by the way, I just also want to say, Longmont is the second safest city in Colorado.
Is it really?
Yes, and it's behind a city called Centennial, and which is a city south of Denver. But I'm talking about cities over 75,000, because as cities get larger, they get more complex and they get more big city-ish in their attributes.
Of course.
And so when the breaking line is 75,000, the cities seem to kind of change. Their complexity changes, things change. The affordable housing issue crops up in a different way. Homelessness looks different. Addiction rates go up. Folks struggling with their mental health rates all those things tend to be proportional to sizes of communities. And so, sense. But over 75,000, we're the second safest city.
Wow, man.
In the state of Colorado.
Well, as the public safety chief, I got to think that you can feel pretty good about that.
We do. We're not complacent, but we're always but we want the community to feel good about that. And by the way, one of the things I don't do is take credit, and nor do we in public safety take credit. We want to make it clear that this community is as safe as it wants to be. And you have a good police department, you have a good fire department, but we can only be as good as the community, frankly. We can only be as effective as the community. And so our motto is policing our public safety in partnership with the people. And so that means joint accountability, that means absolute honesty, that means the right to say no. All those things come with that partnership. But this community is safe, and this community should feel good about itself, not just police and fire. And so I always make that clear that we're only as good as our community. And so that's if that's where we're at with that.
When you talk about the kinds of folks that you're hiring, and you're talking about the kind of values, empathy and teamwork and that kind of stuff, those do seem like Longmont values. I see like these breweries, they could all be kicking each other's dicks in and putting, cigarettes out in each other's drinks and shit. But they don't do that. They all work together on a team because they realize they're all part of the economy.
They all help each other at some level, and if one's doing well, that kind of floats all ships, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm into for sure. And I do think that that's a Longmont value. So it makes sense that we would be a safer place.
Well, I will tell you another great attribute of Longmont that I really like is that there's very little one-upspersonship going on. And when we call people to say we need help, people come. And when people call us, of course we come. But I'm talking about for other kinds of maybe things you might not think the police or fire might be involved in. We try to figure out a way to be there. But I find when I call on people in this community to say we need your help with something, people show up, they sign up. In my mind, that's democracy in action.
Yes.
It's not just about voting, it's about showing up and signing up to be part of doing something that's for the good of the whole.
Yes.
You got to take time out of your day, you got to use your resources and expertise. This community, the goodness in this community is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And while I'm at it, I want to give you a different definition of greatness.
Please.
Oftentimes we associate and apply greatness to things like athletes or leaders or entertainers or cheeseburgers. Okay. Well, my new definition has been for a few years is you can measure greatness by the content of its goodness. And this community is a great community because it has a lot of goodness in it. I'd like to think this country could be a great country. Make this country great again is not the phrase I would use, but I would say this country can be great because there's a lot of goodness. It's just latent, and it's untapped, and it's potential, but it's there. And I don't know if I mentioned this to you in my previous phone call, but a friend of mine, Dan Benavides, and I walk neighborhoods every Sunday morning.
Yes.
And we didn't walk yesterday, it was Easter, but the Sunday before that, we walked a mobile home park called Countryside. And we mostly walk mobile home parks and apartment complexes and high-density housing. And those are neighborhoods that one might consider, well, they might be a little marginalized, they might be a little disenfranchised, but these are amazing places.
Yeah.
And
that's still our community, dude.
Very much. And so we've walked over 150 neighborhoods and met 2,500 people, and we're gonna walk Countryside again because it's so big. We got to split it up in two. But what I discovered, even after living here, more from the walks than my time here and living here, is the fact that people have gifts to offer. They have skills, they have talents, they have resources, they have expertise. It might not be a lot, but what I found is that people want to offer their gifts. Mm-hmm. The great discovery is that people really want to offer them. And so oftentimes they just don't know how. And so what we do, I got a clipboard over here I could show you, but I got name, email address, and phone number. And I ask everybody, I look them in the eye and I say, we need you. This community needs you. Are you willing to make an offering? Are you willing to take the gifts you have? In so many words.
Yeah.
Give your time, give your expertise. 80% of the people not only say yes, it's, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And so I think that's true for every community in America. I think it's true but somehow.
True of humanity.
There you go. And somehow, and I have another take on that in terms of, when we find people, and so my point is, this community has a lot of goodness. This community has a lot of folks that want to offer their gifts. That's untapped, it's potential, latent, and part of our job that Dan and I are doing, we call it the belonging revolution, is to surface and activate that. And not only that, our police officers and firefighters walk neighborhoods making these invitations too. And so they're out in these neighborhoods. They're not responding to call for service. They're not looking for a bad guy. They're not interviewing or interrogating. Mm-hmm. They're just walking neighborhoods looking for people, introducing themselves, making conversation, developing a relationship, and then ultimately an invitation to be more engaged. And so we have a huge data bank of names of people that we have contacted and that are involved in a lot of things. And we're going to continue to do that.
Is there, if somebody's listening to this show now and going, I want to be on that list, how
they can call me. I'll give you a phone number right now.
Please, go ahead.
303-651-8533. I'll repeat it. 303-651-8533, and ask for Mike Butler, and I'll be happy to take your information, and I'll also ask you about what you might be interested in. But I will say to people, and I'll tell your listening audience here, is that we don't sugarcoat anything. These are things when we invite people, we let people know there's nothing easy about what we're inviting people to do.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with issues along the order of addiction or homelessness or people struggling with their mental health, we want people who are, these are challenging issues for our community. We want people who are willing to embrace folks that are struggling, that are but want to take another path in their life. And so, we have all kinds of options for people to get involved in those things. One of the things that you'll never hear me say, and you've not heard me say during this interview, is that I won't say that you're addicted or that you're mentally ill or that you're homeless. When you do that, you define someone as a problem to be solved.
Oh my God!
You do that. When you're doing that, you're kind of looking at them through the lens of their deficiency.
You're telling them what you think their future is.
And you're telling me yourself, you're just sending them the same message that the world has sent them.
Yes.
And so where I go to places, I say, let's change the rhetoric around that. And let's look at people through the lens of their gifts. And I'm convinced that if you want to change, if you want someone to change, whether that's your child or whether that's another person in your life, if you want an organization to change, you want a community to change, and you want that change to sustain itself, if you acknowledge and look at those entities or people through their gifts, that change is most likely to occur quicker and sustain itself. And I think that's, as we talked at the beginning, I think that's the law of a universe. But we have not gotten to that point of looking at people or organizations or social issues through the lens of seeing the possibilities, the lens of seeing how we can live into something, how we can transcend old stories, old failures, and seeing things. If we always see things as a problem to be solved, all we're really doing is fixing the past. We're not really necessarily, or the present, we're not necessarily saying, here's what the future can look like.
We're not changing the pattern going forward.
So if we want a future that's distinct or different than the past, we have to think in terms of gifts, we have to think in terms of possibilities, and we have to think in terms of generosity and those forces in the universe that are in our midst right now. When we harness those things, and the programs that we've put together outside the criminal justice system takes those forces and harnesses them and puts them to use, like the Angel Initiative, like LEAD, like the co-responder program, and says, you have gifts to offer, and we want to help you take another path so that you can bring those gifts to the center and make them available for the rest of us.
Be part of the team, man.
So that's what public safety is really engaged in a big way. In the meantime, we do, when people commit crimes, or when people hurt other people or steal or damage other people's property, I mean, we will take action. But we also have another process that I think you've heard of called restorative justice.
Yes.
We've put close to 6,000 people that have committed crimes, whether or not they've been arrested, they could have been arrested or summoned, through the restorative justice process. The recidivism rate is less than 10% for that. In the criminal justice system, it's close to 60 to 65%.
Right.
And so the differences between the two are very distinct. And in one system, the victim's voice is the centerpiece. The restorative justice process and the criminal justice process, the victim's voice is not heard, very seldom. In the criminal justice process, you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to take accountability, which is a sacred right. But on the other hand, accountability kind of gets lost in the shuffle. In the restorative justice process, people get to choose accountability safely, without worrying about a record, without worrying about going to jail. But then in the criminal justice system, your relationship with the victim or the community is null and void. The professionals take over, your attorney takes over. In the restorative justice process, your relationship with the victim becomes very personal. Oftentimes it turns into great empathy and apologies and forgiveness, and then your connection with the community becomes that way too, because there's community representatives in these processes that let you know, here's how you hurt the community by doing what you did. And so your connection and accountability to the community becomes greater, your connection and accountability to the victim becomes greater, and your capacity to choose accountability in the future automatically becomes greater. And that's what we want to see.
Yeah.
And so we're just basically harnessing different forces outside of the punitive retribution forces and saying these things can be of greater value in terms of helping human beings take another path, whether they're struggling with addiction, struggling with their health, their mental health, struggling with homelessness, committed a crime, whatever that might look like. Yeah. And so those are the programs we've put in place that are alternatives to our criminal justice system that our entire department supports, fire and police. So,
thank you so much for telling me all this information and for transmitting it to my listeners. I really appreciate your time today. A lot of really beautiful, moving information.
You're welcome. So
thanks very much. Let's get together again sometime.
I'd like that.
I love the stuff you're working on. I love the idea of collecting people's information and like letting them be the resource they want to be in the community. Yeah. I'd like to work with you on that on some level.
Well, and if you want to sign up and help out, I'd be happy to take your information too, Andy.
I have it all memorized.
Okay.
So I'll give it to you right after this.
All right. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome.
See, didn't I tell you? Wasn't that a great episode? The Longmont Public Safety Chief. He doesn't have to be as cool as he is. He could have told me to fuck off and that he didn't want to come on my stupid fucking show. That seems like a very reasonable response to my request to come join me. But no, very kind guy. Came and talked to me for longer than maybe I would have even asked, you know. Great guy. I really enjoyed talking to him. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to check me out on patreon.com/Ando the artist and get yourself a copy of this song. I'll let you listen to it now. Dig it, man.